This issue with Ceuta has been going on for years, maybe decades. And so the question now is the Spanish government doing everything it can to stop this?
That is the question.
Muslims and migrants have been coming there for decades, through there, illegally. So the Spanish government knows this is a vulnerable spot, for example.
Assuming it's 50,000, you would need a 3-to-1 multiplier at least. Now, this isn't my area. That would mean you'd need 150,000 people for one town in Spain. Where the are you going to get 150,000 soldiers?
Well, wait a minute. Why not 15, 20 years ago when this issue started, just build barriers?
No, but this isn't.
So they can't land.
I'm talking now.
I see it as this long-term process of dechristianizing Europe. First doing it by getting the people themselves to do it through these things like political correctness, etc. And then now the final element is you bring Christendom's historic enemy, arch rival, nemesis, and plant them all over. And now they're doing it on their own, desecrating churches, the 2.5 in France and everywhere else, actually. It's because Western people have a sense of decency that it's being weaponized against them. Whereas you can never make Mongols or Muslims or Africans tell them, hey, you guys need to suppress your civilization and make room for me. Nobody would, they'd laugh at you. But the fact is you can do that with Western people because they do want to give the benefit of the doubt to the other. They do want to help them.
What would they have to know that if I knew it, I wouldn't think that this is a problem?
I think that should give us courage, exposure to other people's perspectives.
It's moving us in a good direction. What's happening in Ceuta, Spain, and who should care?
Well, according to the most recent reports, it's kind of a live situation. The numbers, again, are not clear, but I've seen numbers up to 80,000 Muslims basically coming from North Africa, from Morocco. Ceuta, Spain is basically, it's Spanish territory, but it's an enclave, and it's very close to Morocco. And what's ironic about this is, so what's happening, just to give you the facts, is these people are just coming, floating, swimming, and just overwhelming it. I mean, if it is something like 80,000, that's something like the population of the Spaniards who live there, okay? And why I find that ironic is because in the year 711 AD, that's where Islam invaded Spain, and they came straight to Ceuta. That was their first stop again. So it's kind of like a repeat of history. And at any rate, you have all these people who are coming in, and you can see video footage of them. It literally looks like an invasion, a takeover.
They're occupying houses. I've seen.
Running around, screaming, Allahu Akbar, because it's a victory, it's a triumph for them. And the question that arises to me, though, and I just quickly touched on history, and I said this is where they actually came originally. The question is, when they came in the 7th or the 8th century, in the year 711, the people who lived there, the Christians, the Spaniards, who were governed by the Visigoths, they did everything they could to stop them. They met them, they fought them, they actually had wars. The king himself was killed in the war because they did what they could. And so the question now is the Spanish government doing everything it can to stop this?
That is the question.
Because I like to look at, when I see a problem, I like to get to the heart of it, the root of it. And for so long, when we see these images, these Muslim migrants, whether they're here coming into Spain or anywhere else in Europe, and you see the images and it looks like an invasion, the problem I have with that is it kind of stops there and people just conclude, oh, look, we're being invaded by Muslims. And if you really want to get to the point, this is not the case. This is, your government can absolutely do something about it. This issue with Ceuta has been going on for years, maybe decades.
Okay,
people coming in.
Let me pause you there, because I think what you said is indispensably important. You said that the government can do something about it. What can they do about it?
Well, anything they want. They could have, so the whole point is this is not new. If this was some overwhelming, unprecedented, unexpected thing, I can say, okay, and now they can do something. But Muslims and migrants have been coming there for decades, through there, illegally. So you would know, the Spanish government knows this is a vulnerable spot, for example, and they have all the armaments and all the manpower and all the resources, including just putting up barriers, serious barriers, whereby these people who are coming on floaties can't even land. So anything can be done, but they're not doing it.
But there's no political will. Is that why they're not doing
it? At least there's no political will. Sometimes I wonder if it's intentional, if they want this.
If
right?
they want it, yeah.
At this point.
Did you see the video of the white woman on the bridge doing this, like motioning?
I've seen that and even worse ones.
Yeah. So, well, there's at least, I'm not going to generalize to the whole population, but there's at least one person, a woman, who thinks that's a terrific idea to have. I don't know the figure because they're illegal, so it's very difficult to get precise estimates, but Certainly more than 50,000, tens of thousands. I think that's a fair characteristic. Tens of thousands of young, almost definitely unskilled, unvetted, young, military age Muslim men. I didn't see any women from the videos that I saw.
You never do.
Yeah.
In these videos.
And so there must be, please correct me if I'm wrong, there must be some people who think this is a good idea.
Well, so before this happened, I think it was a few months ago, where the government of Spain basically said they're going to just give freebie citizenship to something like, remember, 500,000?
Yeah, it was going to be 500,000 and they raised it.
And then I heard it was closer to a million,
yeah.
the same sorts of people who had just come in and they get free citizenship. So there's obviously a lot of goodwill, if you want to put it that way, if you want to put it in a euphemistic way, to appease and cater to these.
So why should anybody care if a small town in Spain that almost no one except yourself has ever heard of is overrun by young, unskilled Muslim men of military? Why should the people of New York care? Why should anybody care? I mean, if the Spanish don't care, why should anybody else care?
No, I agree, and I don't think anyone cares. I think a lot of Spaniards themselves either don't care or think this is good.
That's great. That's terrific.
Yeah. And
I mean, I don't live there.
And we've had this conversation before, which is basically if that's the way that it is, I don't care either. if you don't care and it's your home, I'm not going to care.
Yeah, if you don't care that people are invading your country, why should anybody else care?
Yeah.
But there is a profound truth to that, right? But we're seeing this, and it's just all so predictable. And I was just talking to Gavin about this. It's so predictable. We're starting to see Jews being assaulted, murdered, attacks on ambulances, attacks on individual Jews, knife attacks, attacks on subways. No one seems to care about that. Or maybe some people even want that. I would hope that's not the case, but I fear otherwise, since we've always spoken bluntly and honestly to each other. Do you see historical patterns reemerging in terms of Muslims, Western Europe, and the United States?
Yeah, so what I see is Islamic continuity versus Western confusion. So on the one hand, how Muslims are behaving, the game plan has not changed an iota. Even the concept of jihad, remember the word jihad, its historical manifestation was holy war, because so actually to step back, the word itself, apologists will always tell us when people say, oh, jihad means holy war or violence, the apologists will say, no, the Arabic word jihad means to struggle, to strive. And the irony is, yes, that's exactly what the word means. But historically, the only way you could struggle and strive to empower Islam, because that's the context, was through holy war, violence. Because the people of, let's say, Europe or Christians or anywhere else, the only way you could overcome them was through force. They weren't gonna, fall prey to anything else. But because the word jihad means to struggle or strive, you can try to empower Islam in any which way. And so you can do it through, and these are actual categories of jihad. You can do it through propaganda. You can do it through lies. You can do it through guilt tripping. You can do it through financial means. You can do it through birthing. They have a baby jihad, which is also well on its way in Europe, right? The demographic boom of Muhammad baby boys. Okay, so the continuity on Islam is that the game plan hasn't changed. It's just we're trying to empower Islam. We're trying to take over, spread Islamic governance and rule through jihad. And historically, it was through force. They came through Spain. They came through the Balkans. All the North. Remember, all of North Africa and the Middle East and Asia Minor, that was Christian too. It was part of Christendom historically, and all of that was conquered. And then, like I said, 711, they enter into Spain, Ceuta, and then they go up into France, Battle of Tours, et cetera, et cetera. But now, so that's Muslim continuity. Today, are they coming with swords? No, they're just coming any which way, and they're being let in, and they're being appeased, and they're given citizenship, and they're given housing, and they're given... And the host culture has to have its culture suppressed, and they can't talk. In England, you say something about this issue, you can go to jail, okay? So the continuity in Islam is just unwavering. In the West, that's the difference. This is why I say it's confusion, because whereas once upon a time, the West did what it could, it fought back, Now they are falling prey, not to holy war, because the West is strong enough to stop it physically, but through these other forms of jihad, whether it's the baby jihad, whether it's the guilt trip jihad. Yeah, it's literally called that. I know.
I really should
oxymoronic.
I should laugh. It's just very funny.
But so they're falling for all of that, and the worst part of it all, though, is that their governments are, it's not just that they're allowing this, they're empowering this, they're enabling this. And this is why, as I said in the beginning, if you really want to fix a problem, to me, it's not Islam at this point, it's your governments. This is where the buck stops there, right? They're the ones that can stop this, they're the ones that, which is why, as we always say, you look at countries like Poland and Hungary, they don't have this problem, right?
We just asked the cameraman, why are there no terrorist attacks?
We were trying to trigger him.
Why are there we're trying to trigger him. Why are there no terrorist attacks in Poland? And we know why there are no terrorist attacks in Poland. We know why there are no terrorist attacks in Hungary. All we need to do is be honest about it.
That's right.
We just need to speak in a forthright manner about it.
All those countries had to do, and keep in mind, those countries didn't have to do anything like super inhumane. All they did is put up a fence, or put up a border, or put up and say, no, you can't just come in, and we have our own strict rules for migration, and that was the end of it. Okay, so that's why it's very important for people in the West to understand this problem, as significant as it is. It's not Islam's not doing this. It's being empowered by your leaders, by the people who actually make policy.
Okay, a lot of different paths. I want to come back to this idea that we have. I do think it's important to make a distinction between the United States and Western Europe, unlike some people in our previous conversations who could not do that. But we're referencing the cameraman video. So, who is empowering these people? Like, who in the government? Is it the people on the right? Well, we know the answer, but is it the people on the left? Are they quote unquote allies? Are they progressives? Are they Greens? Who is doing this, and why are they doing it?
All right, so there's two levels to this, and the shadier aspect is, like, what's the game plan, right? Like, and who is ultimately behind the game plan? And you often hear of people, behind the scenes, pulling the strings. That is, it's amorphous, it's subjective, so we can park that. The good news is, the second level is we literally know who is enabling it. And it's the people who are in charge, right? Merkel in Germany, wasn't she the one who allowed that sort of mass migration thing? Starmer in England, right? Yes. I mean, we know who is in charge, and that's the one good thing left in the Western system, is you literally know where the buck stops. So why they're doing it, we can discuss. But we know they're the ones who are doing this, okay? I mean, look at Spain. If it wanted to, if it had the, like we said, the willpower, it definitely has the manpower, it has the means.
I wonder about that, but we can bracket that for another conversation.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that they can, if they wanted to stop it, they could, right?
I'm hesitant.
You don't think they could?
No.
Why?
No. Okay, look at Brussels.
Okay.
When was the last time you were in Brussels?
It's been quite some time.
Brussels is a shithole.
No, I know that.
You think they have enough soldiers and enough people to remigrate everybody? No. How are you going to...
No, I'm not talking about remigrate. You're right about remigrate. I'm talking about stopping this Ceuta issue.
Fair enough. You need a force multiplier for 80, and again, I don't know it's 80,000, but tens of thousands.
I've heard that,
Assuming it's 80,000, assuming it's 50,000, you would need a 3-to-1 multiplier at least. Now, this isn't my area. That would mean you'd need 150,000 people for one town in Spain. Where the fuck are you going to get 150,000 soldiers? How many active...
Well, wait a minute. Why not 15, 20 years ago when this issue started, just build barriers?
No, but this isn't...
So they can't land.
I'm talking now. I don't think it's possible logistically to kick these people. I don't think it's possible.
But I bring up the past because I'm saying anyone who was in a political position in Spain would have known this is a weak, vulnerable position. You should,
but they wanted that, like you said. They must have. Someone must have wanted it.
So.
I mean, the Greens with our buddy Matt Goodwin. So what is the? I have so many questions.
Have at it.
Okay, so. I hate to say this person's name because I really think he's a dimwit, and I'm just hesitant to
say it. I'm curious now.
Okay, Piers Morgan.
Okay.
I don't understand why he's so popular. I honestly don't understand. I'm sure he's a nice person. I don't know the guy personally. I don't even want to go on a show. I have no interest. But he keeps saying every time someone goes on a show, like, well, what's the problem here? These are 5% of the people. Like, I just don't see the problem.
All right.
I mean, what?
Yeah.
What is your response to that? These are just 5% of the people. Like, what's your response to that?
Okay, this is the sort of what I call the temporal argument, which is what the West also suffers from, myopia, which is we can just see the present and we have absolutely no conception of how this is about to unfold and what it will lead to. So, yeah, what's 5%? Hey, can we get along? Well, yeah, but 5% will mushroom and it will grow exponentially, not least because there's such a low birth rate in the West and there's a high birth rate amongst Muslims. So that's the problem. It's not necessarily that, oh, there's 5% and it's going to always stay 5%. And this is why, as you were saying, remigration, I agree with you. Remigration, I don't think anyone has the political will for that in Europe, okay? Even the ones who say they do, because that's a lot messier than what I'm talking about, which is the Poland-Hungary example, which is we won't let the problem start to begin with, right? We're going to prevent it. But remigrating and all that is very difficult. And when you say that, so for example, let's imagine the UK, I forget which, is it Restore that talks about remigration?
Yeah.
Let's say they can do that, okay? Which I doubt can be done, all right? But based on just, the lack of any kind of spine or political will,
Totally,
right?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say for argument's sake they do it. Okay, well you still have something like, I mean, they say the percentage is 6-7%, I think it's more, but let's say it's 6-7% Muslims in Britain. Well, yeah, they're there. Those mosques are there, and the radicalization is there, and the occasional Muslim ramming a car and stabbing someone, et cetera, beheading someone in Belfast or in London is there, and they're going to continue growing in numbers because they have higher birth rates. So that's the problem, okay? That's telling me 5% is kind of like a snapshot today and not looking to the future.
Okay, so I'm begging you to help me understand. No, I'm just begging you to help me understand.
I'm on
this.
board, yeah.
I just cannot understand, and if this gets too weird, tell me.
No, have at it.
I just cannot understand why people cannot see this. It is so obvious to me. It is just so obvious. What do they know? So therefore, I'm led to think that the problem is something, that they have a piece of information or a fact, or they know something I don't know. They're so convinced that this is not a problem. What would they have to know that if I knew it, I wouldn't think that this is a problem?
What they know and accept that you and I don't are a bunch of lies, which is why they believe this and why they say this. So, first of all, the people you're talking about would have a very relative. I think one of the biggest problems infecting the West, in a word, is sort of moral, religious, civilizational relativism. Okay, the idea that no civilization is better, no one's moral or ethical system is better, everything goes, it's all subjective, it's all they all can fit. I think this idea has taken such deep root in Western people's and only Western people's minds, by the way, that it's like, oh, okay, so Muslims did this. Well, what about I don't know, the Crusades or something? They try to make it relative, right? And so in their mind is like. And even the more Muslims misbehave, the more that's just, I remember there was especially a time because if you can't call it for what it is, okay, if Muslims are, for example, all of a sudden are rioting and angry and bombing, let's say, and you can't say, well, that's just part of the religion or that's part of their history or doctrines. You can't say that. Well, what are you left with? Well, these people are really angry because it must be something we did. And then you're left with, oh, it's because of racism. It's because of white racism and xenophobia. It's because of Islamophobia. And then the blame is on you because these are the paradigms these people think through. They can't think that, oh, these people have their own civilizational system that makes me an enemy to them and easy prey. They can't accept that, even though there's mountains of evidence, doctrinal, historical, contemporary, that has been thrown out of their mind because of this idea of relativism, which you cannot say one culture is better or superior to another.
So you're not saying that they know anything that I don't know in terms of what they know is true. You're saying that they're operating from a different set of first principles or beliefs that's causing them to think that 80,000 people overwhelming a Spanish town, occupying people's houses,
Remember our cameraman friend? When we asked him, he didn't believe in sovereignty, and he thought, if someone wants to come in, I don't believe it's my right to stop him. That's the history of the world, and people migrate, and who are we to stop them?
By the way, when you told me that there were 2 churches a day being burned in France. I'm like, that's got to be bullshit.
Did you look it up?
I did.
And?
Repeatedly from multiple sources. You were wrong.
No.
2.5.
Okay, I'll accept that.
And I
was trying to give you a conservative estimate.
And I didn't even know there were that many churches in France. Okay, so we've got this. So I'm just going to ask you questions I've been thinking about. So this is the other thing that I can't understand. So every time, you know, like you mentioned the Belfast case, there's a
Sudanese
guy,
Muslim guy.
yeah, who wants to behead, or looks like he's stabbing in the eye. He didn't actually behead
He was trying to behead him.
Yeah, it looked like it from the video.
Yeah,
and then
he was
they
on
wanted
top of him, like,
they
you know.
wanted to suppress the video, which is another thing that we can talk about.
Yeah.
So every time, we should talk about if you want.
Can we talk about the suppressing? Because I have a good point I'd like to make.
Yeah.
But just remind me if I forget.
Let me just get this up, because this is what I don't understand, and we'll talk about the suppressing and then the gay pride stuff. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So this is what I don't understand. So every single time, and it's a Muslim guy, almost always a man, young man, does something like tries to behead someone, rams a car into something, blows himself up, stabs a Jew, whatever. It's always the same thing I hear from the same people. Oh, this man has a mental illness. Or the Muslim guy in France who stabbed, I think, 3 women and a pregnant woman, and then he said, Allah made me do it. It's always that the guy has a mental disorder, but why is nobody asking, and I've asked this question repeatedly, why is it that you don't hear that from Jains, Buddhists, Pentecostals, like Orthodox Christians, atheists? Why is it that it's only the people? I just don't understand why nobody is asking that question.
Well, okay, yeah. So
is that
yeah, of course it's fair, you know, because if Islam is perfectly fine and there just so happens to be radicals, well, you would think that exists in every religion. But I don't see headlines of, a random aberration radical Buddhist attack. You don't see those headlines. We don't see it for Christians, right? It doesn't happen. So why is this the perpetually misunderstood religion that for some reason has radicals? And your point.
But not even the radicals, it's like, well, he only did that because he had a mental disorder.
Right.
Well, why don't Buddhists who have mental,
right.
why do they gravitate
It's
towards
so
this
ironic.
one religion?
Well, I guess Muslims have a proclivity to have mental disorders, and there may be some truth in this, actually.
Okay, all right.
I mean, there may be some truth, but I don't think it's the mental disorder thing, and you're absolutely right. I see this all the time. So a Muslim does one of these things, goes stabbing, burning, killing, stabbing young girls in England. Remember that also? Some guy, African guy, 3 little girls.
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes back to what I said. If you cannot accept the true first premise, which is that this religion and this man who follows this religion, he's accepted his teachings, which are fundamentally tribalistic and hostile to the other, which is called the infidel or kafir. But it's tribalism, okay? So if you can't accept that, then it's what I said. We have to come up with another rationale that fits the modern secular mentality, which is grievances, racism, and in this case, mental problems. Oh, they did this because they have mental problems. But like you said, why is it always one particular demographic? I just heard that, Salman Rushdie, the guy who who wrote that book, Satanic Verses, and he got a fatwa from Ayatollah decades ago. And he was attacked some years ago. I think he lost an eye.
Yes.
And it just came out that I don't know who's arguing this, but it's coming out that they don't know what the motive is for the attack. Oh, it's not this fatwa for decades that has made him live in hiding, So if you can't accept the obvious, well, you're gonna equivocate and go in circles and pick those things that we do find intelligible, grievances, etc.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to me when people tell you their motive, we don't believe them, but only if their motive is somehow Islamically motivated.
Right.
If it's explicitly Islamic, we don't believe them.
Right.
Or we say there's something else going on here. But if you had a guy who was an actual white supremacist who hated blacks or whatever, and he killed a bunch of blacks or shot them or
if he held the Bible and was quoting it when he was killing them, they would definitely let you know that.
Yeah.
Right?
So the problem then is with consistency. You either say we cannot know the motives of anybody in spite of the fact that they tell us this, or we have to assume that it's almost definitely the motive, barring some extraordinary, like you always have to leave
Right.
a little bit of room to.
But this goes back to what I was saying is relativism. The reason they do that is, okay, because Muslims everywhere are screaming Allahu Akbar and positing their violence through Islam. We have to deny that. But in order to balance it out, we're going to try to show you how Christians do the same thing all the time, even though they don't, because they're trying to make it all relative, you see? And so they'll ignore modern day terror attacks in the name of Islam, and they'll go and try to find something in the Crusades and say, yeah, well, remember that. And even that they'll pull out of context and not even present it correctly.
I wonder if that relativism, what's really motivating that is a moral motivator for fairness. Like, we want to be fair, relativism is a way to be fair. So every time something comes up, you know, because I go around the world, one of the questions I ask people is, which is more dangerous, the far left or the far right? How many people on the far right? How many people on the far left? This SPLC thing was another, holy shit, dude. We could talk about that. Was crazy to me. So I want to get back to what you said about suppression, and then I want to go to the gay pride stuff. And
Right. So I just had this thought recently, which is basically we were talking about the Belfast attempted beheading, but we have had beheadings, of course, in England, in London. I think it was in 2012, maybe. Lee Brigby, the soldier. And he had his head.
There was one in France with Samuel Paty.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up, right?
Who was the school teacher who was beheaded because he insulted.
Right. So, but as you were pointing out, the authorities are always quick, like, we have to suppress this. And now we know why they're suppressing, but oftentimes I'll try to watch it and I'll get 1,000,001 warnings about, oh, this is graphic, you shouldn't be able to watch it, like even on X, which is supposed to be freer, right? And they'll give you all these warnings. And I was just thinking to myself, on the one hand, it seems like what they're trying to say is this is really traumatic footage and we want to warn you. But these are the same people in the same civilization culture that allow Hollywood to create movies with images that are 1,000,000 times more traumatic and that don't even happen. They're not real. I'm talking about the real grotesque violence. And they'll allow you to watch that. But they'll tell you, oh, you can't watch this footage, which is really mild compared to the fake stuff that they bombard you with all day long. So that's how you know for a fact that when they cover this up, it's not because they're concerned you're going to be traumatized. It's because they're covering it up because they don't want you to know the reality.
So you said we know why they're covering this up. And in the case of Ireland, they tried to suppress the video when it came out, of course, Legacy Media, and they took it down off of. Why are they doing that?
Because they don't want you to know the truth.
But why?
Well, yeah, that's the big, because they are, okay, so this is where I think we have levels of different people, and you have the large woke crowd, the camera man mentality. I think there's a lot of that, which they think because if we let you see that, you're going to jump to conclusions and think that Muslims are violent, just what those Islamophobes are saying, and we don't want you to think that, because we know better, right? So you definitely have a lot of those. And then you have the others who are above that, who are, just we want to maintain peace and we don't want uprisings, et cetera, et cetera. But then up and beyond all that, you have the people who know precisely what's going on, and they're the ones who insist on continuing this. Of course, don't want you to see this footage either, because it contradicts what they're trying to do, which is flood these nations with Muslims.
Which is undermine Western societies.
Yeah.
Because they think capitalism is bad, maybe. Because they think it's patriarchal, maybe. Because they think
these are
it's
the reasons they
oppressive,
give.
maybe. Because they think white people are evil and they want more mixed race, quote unquote.
These are the pretexts. I don't know if that's the ultimate. I mean, these are the pretexts that work on the woke mentality, and they say, yeah, you have a good point, so we should agree. I honestly think it's fundamentally, and this comes from a historical perspective. If you really understand what Europe was, okay, it was Christendom. It was so highly Christian. It's hard to imagine it at this point. You were saying, like, I never knew France had so many churches. There's a reason for that. I mean, this was like a hardcore bastion of Christianity, and I think there's been a project to de-Christianize it.
Oh, for sure.
In many ways, culturally, all right, through Hollywood, through movies, through just cultural erasure. And I think the Islam influx is part of that. It's just part of now we're bringing the hostile element, it's the coup de grace and end it all off. And now you can't show anything and you can't talk about your religion because you might offend them. And, every Christmas in Europe where you have large Muslim populations, first of all, Christians aren't allowed to really celebrate and show symbols because if they do, there might be an uprising. And every nativity scene, baby Jesus is beheaded, crosses are broken. So it's like, I see it as this long-term process of de-Christianizing Europe, first doing it by getting the people themselves to do it through these things like political correctness, et cetera. And then now the final element is you bring Christendom's historic enemy, arch rival, nemesis, and plant them all over. And now they're doing it on their own, desecrating churches, the 2.5 in France and everywhere else, actually. And I remembered the point.
Oh yeah, please, tell me.
So the point that I wanted to make is, here's the great irony. We're talking about why the Western people, why are they thinking this? Nobody thinks this. And the great irony is this: the reason that in the West you can talk to European people and make them ashamed of their culture, make them renounce or denounce or suppress their religion and their heritage, and be so apologetic. Or actually, let's focus on one point. Calling them racist and telling them, oh, you have to take in migrants. Let's look at that simple thing. The reason you can get away with that is because Western people tend to be more decent. That's the irony. You can't do this with other people. If you went to another civilization, right, and you told them, hey, you guys need to suppress your culture and your religion because these people need to come and they want to feel equal or whatever, they'd give you the middle finger, okay? Like, that's not going to happen. Okay, the reason you can do it in the West and shame them and make them feel like they're the worst people ever is because they actually have that kind of decency, because they want to be good. So you can actually, so it's being exploited. It's a Christian virtue. And again, if you want to go back to the historical roots of this, it's a Christian virtue, but because it's been stripped of its Christian context, it's now been it's weaponized. It's like this guilt trip. So Westerners, even if they're whatever they are, they still have this sort of decency. And it's being exploited in a way by telling you you're a horrible person. Imagine, I was thinking, for example, okay, Hitler, monster, and I'm not arguing otherwise, but it's like, well, what about Genghis Khan? I never hear about it. I mean, Genghis Khan is celebrated. He's got statues in Mongolia and everywhere, and it's not just Genghis Khan. Any number of, non-Western historical people who engaged in what was definitely a genocide. I mean, if anyone knows what the Mongols did. Now imagine going to Mongolia and saying, well, you guys need to take that statue down because that's horrible. And they'd laugh at you, okay? But Westerners won't. So they'll be like, yeah, you're right. We need to be ashamed. Because they have that decency, but it's gone overboard. It's too much. It's being exploited and weaponized against them, which is ironic.
And that's why the civilization is dying.
Yeah.
And that's why
it has no virility.
It has no virility, and we're in big trouble.
Right.
Explain something to me, if you will. So, a Muslim man in Berlin drives a car into a gay pride parade.
This has all the elements and ingredients that we need.
I mean, I'll just let you take it from there. I'll just take it from there. I mean,
like I said, this has everything you need to understand about what we're talking about is in this particular incident, which happened a few days ago. Okay, so as I understand it, because it's still developing, but it's a Muslim man born in Germany. I think he's Lebanese even, and born and raised there. Has a track record of radicalization, wanting to join ISIS, engaged in crime. Okay, so they know about him. Yeah. And then he takes whatever he's driving, a vehicular, famous, ramming a procession, which, by the way, ISIS, the Islamic State, and other radical organizations oftentimes send out newsletters and their little, proclamations saying do precisely that. And then get out and stab people and hit them and bludgeon them, try to kill them. And I think he killed, I don't remember how many, it's not many, but he injured a lot. Yeah, one was like an elderly lady that he did kill.
Yeah.
And, okay, so what's the response? The natural response should be, okay, here we go again. For the umpteenth time, we have the same exact elements, a Muslim engaged in the same vehicular ramming.
A male. Young.
And yes, and you trace it back and you find out he's been radicalized, whatever that means, which means he's following Islam, ISIS, that sort of thing, jihad. And so there's the continuity. I'm not shocked. Now, how's Germany responding? Apparently, the big thing now is that guy was suffering from what the real problem is. He first of all, he's being described as a German, right? Well, he's born and raised in Germany. I don't know. Is he German? And this now is indicative of how toxic masculinity is undermining German peace,
of course.
Right? So has nothing to do with Islam. It's just toxic masculinity. And now this is going to be used to actually attack any man, a real German man who maybe wants to be masculine. Not that there are many left, obviously. But and the gay pride, and I've seen so many other things that they're positing it in this way, which is like, oh, it's not about Islam, it's about Islamophobia. Oh, he was upset.
The right-
He
the
was
right-
yes.
they
It's
blame it on
the
the
rise
right.
of the right wing. So he did this actually because he was upset because of Islamophobia, and this was his way of lashing out. Never
a lot of
mind that
racism,
Islam hates
a lot of
homosexuality, right?
Right.
And calls for this sort of thing either, right? So this is what I mean. This is the perfect combo. We see it. The Muslims doing what Muslims have been doing historically, but the West is not doing what they did historically, which is actually that Germany wouldn't have to fight back if it didn't bring in millions of them, of course. But even when they do it, they dissemble and they lie and they blame it more on themselves.
Okay, so explain this to me then, if you can, please. The organizer of the Pride Parade immediately afterward came out and said, a lot of people are using this incident to divide us. I mean,
It's too much, isn't it?
it's
It's like
I don't even-
comical.
why would he say something like that?
Again, I'm a simple guy, so all of these things kind of fit into the same paradigm, which I've been
Yeah.
trying to articulate, which is that, these people are not rational. You have to understand, there's, a huge chunk of Western population is, I would say, mad, like insane, really.
Yeah.
They're irrational people. I believe if you brought people, okay, so this is actually what a lot of people from the third world think when they come to the West. They're kind of like, these people are crazy. And they laugh at it, but it's kind of funny because it usually benefits them.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen and I've read about testimonials of people who come from Iran who are not Muslim because, you can look at Islam I'll tell you this, as a kind of colonizing, in kind of religiously colonized people, Iran. Persia is separated from the Arabs. And when many of those people, Iranians, flee and they go to the West, they're mortified. They're utterly horrified that they're seeing manifest what they just escaped from.
Yeah.
And then the usual suspects are criticizing them. The leftists are criticizing them for criticizing the Islamists. I mean, it's just...
Well, my own family, they're from Egypt, Coptic Christians. And I remember my mom, she's passed away, but they both are, but... she came, she used to tell me, I thought we were coming to a Christian country, and I thought it was a free country, which it was, and she appreciated that aspect. But then she learned a long time ago, it's not really a Christian country. And then Muslims started, appearing where she lived, and, hijabbed women, and she started, attitudes and things like that. And she's like, I can't escape these people. I left my country, I'm here, and then these dumb Americans, they bring them in, and they they appease them, and they give them whatever they want. And she's like, don't they understand what these people are all about?
So I'm hesitant to be explicitly political, and I try to watch it when I do. But I just have to say, I'm looking at the mayor of New York, and I've seen what his wife does regarding Jews. Now listen, about social media, posts, et cetera. Now listen.
You might want to have to say what it is just so I'm on the same page.
So his wife was on social media and posted some pretty negative things about Jews. I'm not going to go into those because, and I understand that you are not your wife's keeper. I'm worried about the consequences of people who hold certain religious views using the legal architecture to legally acquire positions and then discharge the edicts of their religion.
Yeah. And that's really the issue. When a lot of people complain about Mamdani and other people. And again, I told you, I have this kind of brain that likes to gravitate to the real source. So to me, I don't see him as the issue. I see him as a symptom. The issue is, we have our political system, and it allows, A, that sort of thing to be elected. B, the voting populace has been so intellectually undermined and indoctrinated in what we've been talking about, wokeism and in madness, that they vote for people like that and bring them into power. And then they do what they do, which is possibly creeping Islamization or whatever, or communism, because he's in bed with both those ideologies. So again, we can look at him and complain about him and have no problem with that. But if you want to get to the source of it, just like we could talk about Muslim migrants invading Europe, but to me the source is the people allowing this, the people enabling this. It all comes back to us, to the West, whether it's the political system, whether it's the electorate body, the people who vote, whether it's the politicians who make policy. This is really the problem.
Okay, so we've diagnosed this, you and I, everybody's diagnosing this. I see a lot of good diagnoses, a lot of bad diagnoses, but I don't really see people offering any, what can we do about this problem? And so I'll be blunt with you. I don't think Western Europe can do anything about it. I think they're in hospice, and it's too bad because I like to vacation here. But they've made their own bed. Now they have to go to sleep in it. However, what can we in the United States do to protect ourselves from this looming and ever-growing threat? Now, I would like to use the word Islamism. If you don't accept that, that's fine. But is there anything at an individual level people can do? Is there anything at a policy level things people can do? Is there anything like people who run corporations or any kind of specialty thing? Like, what tools can you give people beyond diagnostic abilities to act in a way to help stave off this threat?
Fundamentally, I think people would have to understand, here's the issue. Islam is called a religion. When you call something a religion, then that's hands off. Okay, it's his right. He can practice his religion. Who are we to talk about it? Everyone can believe whatever they want. It can be an atheist, a religious person, whatever the case may be. So as long as it's called a religion and seen as a religion, it's by the Western system, it's protected. You can't attack it. Now, having said that, we have to define what is a religion. So apparently in the West, most people come from sort of a Christian background. They think religion is just this thing you do on the side, okay? There's the real world where we live secularly with each other and we follow rules. And then there's this thing, I go to a church and I pray, I read my Bible, I meditate, and that's it, okay? Islam is not that, okay? Islam is actually a way of life. It's even in the words itself. We talk about things like Sharia law, Islamic law. Sharia literally means, all these are Arabic words, of course, and they trace back to Muhammad, who's an Arab, and he's living in Arabia, and it's a desert, and Sharia, it was the pathway to water. It's the way to life, okay? You need water in Arabia, of course. So what is Sharia law? It's basically a prescription of how to live your life. It's a policy. So it's not just I can come and be an American as a Muslim and follow the rules, and then I just do this thing in my head, I pray, and that's the end of it. No, you actually, there's any number of rules that are part of Islam, okay, that are so antithetical to Western law, right?
So what do we do? Let's just accept by fiat that's the case. And I am hesitant to group Islam together, Indonesia, et cetera, and Syria, but let's just accept by fiat that's true. What does the average American do? What does the American voter do? What does mid-level bureaucrat do? Mid-level something for everybody. Like, is there anything that we can do to help fight this problem?
Well, okay, so the average person and that sort of thing. The best you can do is just try to inform them the way we are. I write books, I do videos, you talk about these topics. So we can do that. But from a policy point of view, for example, in Texas, there's this kind of anti-Sharia movement, which I find interesting because a lot of these politicians will openly attack Sharia, but they'll at the same time speak well of Islam. And they don't seem to understand that Sharia and Islam are two sides of one coin. You don't have one without the other. You can't. What is Islam? Islam, the Arabic word Islam, means submit. Well, what are you submitting to? You're submitting to Allah. Well, sounds easy enough. But Allah demands things of you. That's Sharia. That's the pathway to the water. And these things are so often antithetical, no religious freedom, et cetera. So if policymakers could somehow change it or make it so that Islam is not a religion, it's actually an ideology, okay?
Wouldn't that the problem with that be, though, that people would try to do the same thing for like Hare Krishnas and Pentecostals or primitive Baptists?
Yeah, but like we mentioned earlier, we don't have problems with these people, right? We don't hear about radical fundamentalist, mentally disturbed Hare Krishnas and Pentecostals killing people.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah.
This is the problem. We can't be sensible. We can't just use common sense.
Yeah.
This is the problem. We no longer can operate under commonsensical, thinking. And that's what happened. This is what you see.
Okay, so give me some more specifics for what you think people can do in the United States.
Okay, awareness. And the good news for the United States, of course, if we're talking strictly about the Islam question, is that it's not like Europe at all, right?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
just simply due to the population. And oftentimes one can make the argument that Muslims in the United States assimilate better simply because they are fewer numbers.
Much better, and they're skilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and we have a culture of assimilation.
Right. Well, the problem, assimilation is just numbers. You go to Europe and you dump 1 million Muslims in one area. Well, they'll never assimilate. Generations will go by and they won't learn a word of English.
Whitechapel in England.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that, again, that kind of thing is, so anyway, but talking about the United States and America, I guess knowledge is key. But again, I've reached this point that, you can know everything about Islam, you can understand the dangers and how it's, antithetical to Western civilization. But if you still have these fuzzy thoughts in your head, if you're still a relativist, and if you still have any, signs of wokeness inside you, yeah, you're not going to be able to get it done, because this requires firm thinking, rational thinking, and just too many people have been compromised.
Well, then we're doomed.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because we're not brave, we're not honest, we're not forthright in our speech. Let me say something that's been bothering me a lot. I'll just look at you as my therapist. My confession is,
all right.
I see so many people say, well, why don't the moderate Muslims criticize the radical Muslims? And I retweeted something that said, well, why don't mosques, and I think it was said ironically, hang pride flags out to support the gays who are murdered, or the gay guy and everyone is. And there is some truth to that non-ironically. Like if they really wanted to do that, they could. But look what happened in our country very recently, and it's still Western Europe and the Anglosphere is beholden to it now. People couldn't even speak out about things about what a woman is or chemically castrating kids when no one was trying to chop your head off.
No.
So I think it's unfair to ask moderate Muslims or people who are like cafeteria-style Muslims to speak out against this when we couldn't even do it when the stakes were much lower. So I think that places an undue burden on them. I also think that there's a kind of, there's a kind of rampant cowardice going on to speak honestly about our problems. And I think we're so hyper-attenuated to the sensitivities of others that we're so worried, oh, this guy's going to think this, or this guy's going to think this if I say this. But as long as you don't speak honestly, you're just going to have more. It's like speaking honestly about black crime, black on black crime. It's like, as my friend Matt Thornton says, you have people not speaking honestly about it who are liberals, and the consequence is more young dead black men. So they don't give a shit about young dead black men, because if they did, they'd speak honestly about it.
Yeah, no. If remember the George Floyd thing? It was, the whole world heard about it, and it was like, okay, but that was one black man. Yeah. But when there's hundreds being killed every couple of weeks, and you don't say anything.
Okay, is there anything, I could talk to you truly for days. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
No, but I can try to give you a final unpacking if you'd like me to. Right. So the way I see what's going on, and it's kind of sometimes hard to articulate, but I think one of my unique ways of thinking is it's so tied to history. I don't just I'm not myopic, unlike so many people. So I just have this deep background that I see everything through. And I think, okay, so we spoke historically, right, about Islam in Europe, Islam in the West, Islam in the Christian world. And what we saw is a mass conquest, mass violence, from North Africa, Egypt, Syria, Asia Minor later, all of North Africa, and to Ceuta, Spain, and then they got into France, and then much later with Ottomans, you have the Balkans get conquered. In 1683, they're in Vienna. Muslims from North Africa reach Iceland, and they bring slaves, and there's 1.25 million slaves in 1 century in Algiers. And then America's very first war as a nation after independence is with Muslims screaming jihad and enslaving. Okay, so right, we have all that going on. And by the way, anyone who's interested, these are in my books, Two Swords, actually Sword and Scimitar and Defenders of the West especially covers that long historical period. And you can see how did Europeans respond? They were the weak ones at the time, right? And they responded to the violence and force and crusades, etc. Okay, then you fast forward and there's this massive change. Now the West is powerful and Islam is the weak world, or the weak side, the weak contender. And yet you still see the same dynamics. Muslims are still aggressive, but they don't have intrinsic, strength. It's just that the West has become not only weak morally, but they enable the Muslims to it's almost like a masochistic thing. Come and rape us and take over and colonize us and do whatever you want. And so I honestly do think a lot of that has to do with the retreat of Christianity from the public sphere. Because what happened is this: as people became more materialistic, not materialistic as covetous, but materialist paradigm, epistemology, which is all that exists is the physical, they sort of kept Christian values, which is, don't hurt people, be tolerant, be nice, etc. But it was all turned solely to material ways, which means don't kill someone, don't physically harm someone. And so that's why these ideas are so prominent still in the West, because it's a leftover. But what has been lost is the metaphysical or moral side of Christianity, which is balance, which does speak the truth, like you were saying, which does stand for the right, which would say, yes, but the problem is blacks are killing more blacks, because it's being honest and it cares about the problem. So we're left with this sort of quasi-half Christianity, which is very weak and effete and effeminate and emasculated, and it's led to what we're seeing. And this is why non-Christian societies don't have these problems, because they don't have that softening aspect, which historically what it did was make Christians moderate and just. That was what chivalry was. It was a fusion of their primordial violent side, which was not unlike jihadists, let's say, but it was tempered by these virtues, and so that's what chivalry, for example, was. But now we've lost that, and we just have this kind of like, as I call it, doormat Christianity. It's like you just have to lay down and don't judge, don't talk, and be a coward, and then tell yourself, I'm virtuous, I'm saved, I'm going to heaven. And I think that is one of the most unspoken, unarticulated aspects that really explains all that we're seeing.
So if we want to save the West, we might have to remasculize Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even, and the irony is people would think someone like me, I'm trying to create something that never existed. Actually, that's the historic form of Christianity. What we have is the aberration. The doormat business is not the historic form. The historic form was a lot more muscular and a lot more assertive, but it was based on justice and righteousness. It wasn't about, I'm going to force you to become a Christian, or I'm going to make you a dhimmi, or I'm going to burn your mosque. Okay, it was just about, we know what's right, we know what's good, and you have your rights, I have my rights, and no one's going to transgress against the other, and we have laws, and we're going to respect them. But without that, you just have this limp kind of Christianity that permeates even atheists, because they're from the West. They've inherited that materialist aspect, which is we won't physically hurt you, we won't do anything, and so you have and this also ties up to what I was saying, which is, it's because Western people have a sense of decency that it's being weaponized against them. Whereas you can never make Mongols or Muslims or Africans tell them, hey, you guys need to suppress your civilization and make room for me. Nobody would. They'd laugh at you. But the fact is you can do that with Western people because they do want to give the benefit of the doubt to the other. They do want to help them. And so it's being exploited and used to treat them like you're the worst society that's ever been here. You're all evil. Look what your historical predecessors did, et cetera, et cetera.
Fascinating, fascinating. A lot of people say no to this, but I always ask, is there anything you wanted to ask me?
Oh, you? Well, there's always good questions to ask you. Well, I unpacked this whole thing and I tied it to Christianity, and I know you're a self-professed atheist. So what do you feel about what I just said?
I do think that Christianity kept the guardrails on a lot of things. I'm a cultural Christian, as you know.
Yeah, everyone I think is. I think all atheists and secularists are culturally Christians, and that's almost a problem. It'd be better if they weren't.
Dawkins has said the same thing. He's a cultural Christian. And so, tell me what you mean by it would be better if they weren't.
It'd be better if they weren't, because if you're just cultural, what happens is you've inherited certain aspects, but only the sort of nice doormat things.
Yeah.
And so that's what weakens you, because you can't balance it with the more robust, masculine, muscular Christianity that gave it more justice.
And we see that in, I don't want to say the atheist movement because that's long dead now, but we see that in atheists.
Yeah.
I mean, they're weak, they succumb to moral fashions, very pathetic, most of them. They have no spine, they're relativists. By and large, I'm generalizing, but I think those generalizations hold.
And we see
they
strength.
don't know what a woman is.
Yeah.
They're beholden to whatever's morally fashionable at the moment. So what was your question to me again? Oh, what was your question?
Well, my question to you was basically, because I know you say you're an atheist, you are an atheist, and you started answering it. You said you're a cultural Christian and you do believe they kept the guardrails. So I was asking you.
So the question was what exactly?
Do you agree with me? And I guess you do.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I don't think there's a way back from this. Like if you look at the most atheistic countries, they've been the most susceptible. Like Sweden, it's been a catastrophe. It's a
Germany.
so obviously, I don't believe this stuff is true. I think it's unethical to lie to people and tell them that stuff is true, that they should believe it anyway. And yet, and I'm not advocating lying, I'm not repudiating any of these, first principles, and yet I don't see a way forward without figuring out, we know that Christian guide rails work. We know what happens when, at least the last 20 years have shown us very obviously, nothing good. When you lose those guardrails, even if the guardrails are arbitrary, when you lose the guardrails, the society
Right.
goes to crazy town.
Because what's happened is when you lose the guardrails, what you're left with, and this is what I was trying to explain, maybe I didn't articulate it good enough, but is what you're left with is a materialist paradigm, which means I don't have a culture, I don't have a civilization, I don't have a heritage, I don't care about any of those things. I just care about the now. And yeah, that's a civilization that's not going to last.
See, I wouldn't use materials. So I'm a naturalist. I believe that only the natural world exists, but I still believe that there are better and worse ways of life, of living.
Right.
I believe that there are things worth fighting for. I believe in Enlightenment values. I believe in, but
The Christian side's still in you then.
well, that's yeah. I mean,
Because if you are a true atheist, atheists tend to be relativist and subjective.
Okay, but
and
that's-
nothing is. Who's to say that's right and who's to
yeah,
say
but
that's
that's
wrong?
just because a lot of people are
Right.
atheists in the same way. They don't think about it very much. They don't. Maybe it's morally fashionable,
Right.
or to be
Yeah.
cool, etc. But I am deeply, deeply concerned about the spread of radical Islam. We didn't talk about halal markets, which I had a former guest on the show to talk about that. The spreading of radical Islam in prisons. I'm deeply concerned about that. Nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody gives a shit about any of this stuff. Nobody gives a shit about the debt.
Well,
like all the things that I
why
think
should
are
someone
super
give a
important.
crap if look, I don't believe in the afterlife. I'm not having children. I don't have. It's all about me. You know what? I'm going to engage in white flight. Right? I'm just going to move, and it's not my problem.
Yeah.
But historically, people were like, no, this is my land, and this is for my children, and I have a
Yeah,
legacy, and this is my heritage. And they had something to fight for. But if you just think kind of like in a temporal, okay, I'm X amount of years. I have only a few years left. What do I care? It's not my problem. And I think
So
that's
that's funny because I think just the opposite. I think because I only have a few years left, that I'm absolutely all in. But I think
you have a
certain people-
transcendent side to you for an atheist. I'm impressed.
Oh well, thank you, thank you. Where can people find your work?
Thanks, Peter. You can go to my website, RaymondIbrahim.com, and it has links to various things, including my Substack, and links to all my books, and links to my YouTube channel.
And you have a big debate coming up with Majid Nawaz.
Yeah, on September 11, no less.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
interesting date
Yeah,
choice.
yeah.
Raymond, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Peter.